Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Durham, October 3rd, 2016, the FBI offered Christopher Steele $1 million to provide corroborating evidence of the allegations in his reporting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was that paid to him?
I'm sorry, was that what?
Was that paid to him?
That money was never paid out. There was no corroborating information.
Mr. Steele relied solely on a single unnamed subsource, correct?
He said that he had a primary subsource who had a network of subsources.
On October 18, 2016, the FBI submits the application for FISA surveillance relying heavily on the Steele Dossier. No corroboration, correct?
And no corroboration for the substantive claims in that.
But they knew Steele was a signed-up paid informant. Could have asked for sources, never did, said he was reliable, no record of reliability, correct?
Mr. Steele had provided information in other areas, not in this area, in prior occasions.
FISA application relied, according to your report, at least in part on the Clinton plan intelligence, correct?
I'm sorry,
And the FISA application relied, according to your report, at least in part on the Clinton plan intelligence, correct?
Yes.
And they knew Steele had been hired by Fusion GPS, and Fusion had been hired by a law firm on behalf of senior Democrats, and that HC was aware, correct?
At various points in time, those things became known to the FBI, yes.
And at December 2016, the FBI determined that Igor Danchenko, a Russian national, was previously subject to FBI investigation to be Steele's subsource, correct?
Yes.
They do not talk to Danchenko before the next FISA application, correct?
Correct.
January 12, 2017, the FBI goes back to renew the application for FISA surveillance, correct?
Yes.
Coincidentally, 1 week before Trump is inaugurated, correct?
Correct.
They then, after 2 trips to FISA, finally talked to Danchenko, basically determined it's all crap because they'd been relying on a Democrat operative, Dolan, correct?
Well, part of that is true. They clearly had relied on the information in the Steele dossier. There was a portion of one report from Steele that was definitely tied to Mr. Dolan.
Then in March of 2017, Jim Comey testified here on Capitol Hill that the FBI, under its counterintel authorities, has investigated Trump for collusion with Russia and people might get indicted, correct?
Correct.
Is it normal for the FBI director to talk about FISA-related investigations publicly? As a general matter?
I would say a general matter, I would say no.
Right. And again, knowing full well the uncorroborated allegations and knowing full well the genesis of said investigation was tied to Hillary Clinton's campaign, which the FBI director would have known.
People in the FBI knew that.
Correct. April 2017, they go back to FISA. They report they've interviewed principal source and that the source is credible, but they leave out the entire fact that it's only credible and making clear that they relied upon before was total garbage. They continued through the summer of 2017, correct?
That's correct.
Under federal law and FISA rules, once they know there's an error or some material fact is incorrect in previous applications, you're supposed to correct that, right?
That's correct.
Was that done here, yes or no?
Not at the time.
Was Deputy Director McCabe in charge of this investigation?
Deputy Director McCabe had direct involvement in the investigation.
Was Deputy Assistant Director Peter Strzok heavily involved in the investigation? And was FBI Director Comey briefed on the investigation?
The evidence that we came upon was, yeah, they were definitely, this is driven by the 7th floor.
Each FISA application is a verified application, and there's a Woods file with every factual assertion kept in a file, correct?
Correct.
Is it reasonable to believe that senior FBI leadership, and indeed senior leadership at the DOJ, did not know all these failures to ensure truthful facts were used for each FISA application, an application directly focused on an American presidential campaign? Is it reasonable to believe that the senior FBI leadership, and indeed senior leadership at DOJ, did not know these failures?
That I would distinguish between what the FBI knew and what the Department of Justice knew.
So FBI leadership knew it?
The FBI, people in the FBI knew this information. Not everybody knew everything, but they had all of this information.
So 2 final questions. In the fall of 2021, our colleague, Mr. Schiff, said in an interview, but at the beginning of the Russia investigation, I said that any allegations should be investigated. We couldn't have known, for example, people were lying to Christopher Steele. Is it remotely conceivable that the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and the lead prosecutor of the impeachment of President Trump was uninformed that this investigation was kicked off based on a Clinton campaign Democrat-funded report with a witness, Mr. Steele, claiming facts that were uncorroborated and that ultimately came from a subsource, a Democrat operative, Mr. Dolan? Is that conceivable? And is in fact there evidence out of the House Intelligence Committee that directly contradicts that and that he did know, in fact?
I wouldn't know what Mr. Schiff would know, but at the time.
Finally, a final question. For the average American watching this, besides being fired, have Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, or Peter Strzok been held accountable for these glaring violations? Have they been hauled before a grand jury or charged in any way? And if not, why not?
So they have not been Well, I'm not going to talk about matters that occur before the grand jury because I can't. But with respect to have any of those individuals been charged, the answer is no.